Good morning, everyone. I think now it's time to start. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this EHPA webinar on the role of energy storage in energy community, assessing readiness, needs, and regulation through eco and best storage project. Let me shortly introduce myself. I am Giulia Malafarina, working as EU Project Officer for EHPA, and I will moderate this webinar today. Before starting, to briefly introduce you to the event, I would like to give you some housekeeping rules. As you see, you cannot activate your camera or your micro during the webinar, but we encourage you to write down your question in the chat, both during the discussion and in the Q&A section. Just please remember to include the name of the speaker you are addressing the question to in the chat. And please note that this webinar is recorded, and the recording of the webinar together with the presentation will be made available right after the event. Now let me go over the agenda very quickly. We will have an opening statement from Margarita Roncevic from the European Association for Storage of Energy. And at the core of our event, we will have the presentation of four speakers: Carla Zambrano González from la Universidad Internacional de La Rioja and Politécnico de Valencia, Felix Kriedman from Rescoop, Renewable Energy Sources Cooperatives, followed by Efren Guillo Sansano from Enercoop, Coopérative d'énergie renouvelable, and finally Pavel Bodis from Newton Energy. We will have at the end have a closing event with our Q&A section, where you can present your question, writing them in the chat. Again, I remember you to add the name of the speaker you're addressing the question to. As you may guess by the title, the webinar is organized in the framework of ECO and Best Storage Project, two EU projects founded under the same Horizon Europe call. ECO is a 4-year EU project that will develop and demonstrate a new modular thermal energy storage system and the result of the project will be an innovative, compact, and smart test solution based on the use of optimization of thermochemical materials combined with phase change material for space heating, cooling, and hot tap water production. And Best Storage is a 4-year Horizon project that will develop and demonstrate long and short-term high energy density storage solution in 4 demo cases around Europe. These include a thermochemical, compact, and efficient seasonal storage technologies, plus 2 concepts with phase change material and vacuum insulated water storage for shifting peak load demands in cold and warm application. So I would like to invite you to follow the projects on their website and on their social media accounts, and also to sign up to receive our biannual newsletter that will be released soon, and to keep you updated with the latest news, development, and the event related to the projects. But now, without taking too much of your time, I would like to give the floor to our first speaker, Carla Zambrano. Margareta Roncevic is the opening statement, and Margareta works as a Junior Policy Officer for the European Association for Storage of Energy, dedicated to advancing energy storage solution in the European Union. She actively monitors energy storage legislation, leads work groups on key topics, and engages with members and stakeholders. Her main areas of expertise include thermal energy storage technology, sustainable batteries, and different legislative acts. And she has also a previous professional experience in public policy and project management. Today, Margarita is going to give us an introduction and an overview on a thermal energy storage solution. But without further ado, I'll give you the floor to you, Margarita, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, well, basically, you said everything. I also had a little speech, but okay, you covered pretty much everything. But first of all, thank you for inviting me. And yes, just in short, very happy to be here. I will, as already said, give you a short introduction on thermal energy storage, a bit of overview on what we do as a European Association for storage of energy, and of course at the end, or I assume at the end of the webinar, we will have time for questions. You can also send them in the chat. So I will start with the presentation on the on our association, for our European Association for Storage of Energy. I will give you a brief overview on the energy storage technologies in general, and then we will focus on thermal energy storage specifically. So what do we do as a European Association for Storage of Energy, or EASE? So we are a member-supported association, which means that we are representing organizations that are active the entire energy storage value chain. Being member-led, it means that our actions and our activities are influenced, or they're not only influenced, but they are paid by our members. Our members can be are anything from utilities, technology suppliers, research institutes, DSOs, TSOs, and any organization that falls on the different side of the energy storage value chain. Our main goal is to support the deployment of energy storage throughout the European Union and beyond. Of course, the European Union is our main geographical kind of area of where we impact, but we also do have members outside of the European Union and who do have activities within the European Union. So the three main activities that we do is raising awareness on the importance of energy storage and its role within the energy transition. We also do information sharing and market design. This is our current membership profile. If you want to learn more about any of them, you can go on our website. I can share the link later. But as you can see, it's a very diverse group of members that we have, and currently we have over 70 of them. I think 72, but yes, quite a good number so far. We're gonna transfer to the topic of the energy storage. So energy storage technologies, they are described both in terms of power capacity and energy capacity to indicate power capability, as well as the storage volume. So at the moment, the most famous energy storage technologies are, as you're probably aware, batteries and hydrogen. That is something that you constantly hear at least in the European Union level. However, we don't only represent batteries or hydrogen. We're technology neutral association. So we cover all of the other energy storage technologies that there will be a slide later. In terms of applications and why energy storage is important in the energy transition, these technologies can provide ancillary services to support the distribution infrastructure, services to support transmission infrastructure, and these are all, and of course many others. And these are all some of the services that, of course, not every single energy storage technology can support or provide all of the services that are listed on the slide. But each energy storage technology does have its place within the system, within different projects, different business cases, and can provide certain and excel in certain services in some way or another. In this slide, you can see all of the energy storage technologies or all of the family of energy storage technologies that we support or that we represent. So as you can see, it's much more varied than just batteries or hydrogen. Of course, batteries and hydrogen have its place, as I already said, but there is also thermal energy storage, there's mechanical, and so many more others. We are today going to focus, of course, on thermal energy storage. As you are probably already know, the thermal energy storage is one of the, we would say, maybe more of neglected storage technologies in terms of how much it is recognized in the legislation of the specifically European Union. And this is something that, for example, for this year, we have been working very, very hard to kind of gain more traction on these specific technologies. We have prepared certain publications, we have engaged with the policymakers and so on. On this slide, you can see we have a definition of thermal energy storage that was prepared by the members of our task force. So within our association, we have different task forces, and one of them is zone thermal. This year, we have been, amongst other things, working on and published a paper on thermal energy storage that I will share with you. And within this paper, we have formed the definition of thermal energy storage that we actually haven't found in any other publication that was so specific to thermal. So thermal energy storage is one of the energy storage technologies that refers to the means of deferring the final use of thermal energy or electrical energy through thermal means to a moment later than when it was generated, or the conversion of any form of energy into a form of energy which can be stored, the storing of such energy, and the subsequent reconversion of such energy into electrical or thermal energy. It doesn't really roll off the tongue, but it does explain what specifically thermal energy storage is. On the little graphic, you can see how we kind of divided the different types of thermal energy storage into sensible, latent energy storage, and thermochemical heat storage. This is, of course, a very rough division. You can go into more and more detail, but we kind of wanted to keep it a little bit more clear. What is important to kind of accentuate with thermal energy storage is that as many other energy storage technologies is that it is determined by the commercial requirements. So the storage duration can be is based on the overall system design, and it can be increased or decreased based on the business cases, based on what is the actual need within the business case or within where you want to put this. So it's quite one of the good things about thermal energy storage is that it's quite adaptable. We are going to go a little bit more into detail on these principles of thermal energy storage. So as you can see, and as you saw on the previous slide, we have three main ones. With the sensible heat storage, this is the most common one. This is the one that you're going to find the most in the commercial uses. For each one of them, we put kind of what is the energy storage temperature range and the storage duration. And again, this can be adapted. The differences between these technologies are, of course, the materials also that they used and the types. So if it's going to be liquid, if it's going to be gas, and so on and so forth. Again, all of these storage technologies, they have their own research potential. They have their own, within the subtypes, they have different technology readiness levels, which are rapidly changing. I'm not going to read you out all of these definitions, but of course, if you have any more questions and if you want to learn more, please feel free to ask later. On this slide, you can see some of the use cases that we have kind of gathered from our members. Of course, the use cases is one of that we would like to hear more about is the projects that you have done and that you are executing. We're always curious to learn about more projects, about more use cases that we can also share. It doesn't necessarily have to be from our members, but these are some of the use cases that our members are providing. So some of the services that our members are providing in the residential, commercial, and district heating, in the reducing renewable energy sources curtailment, and of course the waste heat recovery in different industries. Something that I would highlight is definitely that this topic of industry decarbonization is gaining more and more prominence. More specifically in thermal, when talking about thermal energy storage. So you will probably hear a lot of applications of thermal energy storage in industry decarbonization webinars and potential. And it is one of the best energy storage technologies to be used in this segment. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that it's the only service or the only area where it can be used, but it is definitely something that the thermal has a great potential. especially in energy heavy industries. So for example, in steel, in the chemical industries, pulp and paper, and so on. But again, this is a non-exhaustive list of use cases. There's many more, as you know, and we are very happy if you want to share any particular projects and use cases that you would like. The challenges that the thermal energy storage faces in its deployment, it reflects the challenges that the other energy storage technologies face. So it is not really, it's not there's no, let's say, big differences between, for example, thermal and mechanical energy storage. The only thing that would be different, for example, with the batteries or hydrogen, is that again they're much more recognized on the regulatory level. As you can maybe you're familiar. This year we have published. The European Union has brought the batteries regulation into force, which addresses the whole value chain, not value chain, but life cycle of battery, which is quite substantial and quite good in terms of incentives, in terms of recognition. What we would like to see is energy storage strategy on the European level, but also specifically addressing other energy storage technologies. But okay, we need to go step by step. For the specific regulatory challenges that the thermal is facing, one of the biggest ones would be the double taxation. Again, this is something that other energy storage technologies are also facing, which basically means that the taxation occurs when the stored energy is taxed. So both when it's initially purchased or generated, and then again when it is discharged or utilized. So of course this leads to a great economic burden, and it discourages the adoption of energy storage technologies. There's a lack of financial incentives, again, because it's not recognized on the regulatory level. Of course, for the investors, especially for private investors, also for public investors, it does lack this regulatory signal in the sense that, okay, this is a safe, this is a technology, this is a ready technology, commercially ready, that is worth investing in, and also not just the commercially ready technology, but the technologies that have great innovation and research potential. Data accessibility is also a big problem. Data is quite scarce. There's now there is a slight change, but we would like to see better and more prominent data accessibility as well. The capacity remuneration mechanisms. Now they're quite still leaning towards the fossil fuel industry, which of course it doesn't really help in the energy transition. Uneven playing field, something that kind of was brought up before, but in a sense that certain technologies are kind of being pushed more, even though, for example, better technology solutions do exist for certain challenges. What I would like to invite you to for the end is to have a look at our policy paper that we prepared on thermal energy storage, where you can have a brief introduction on the thermal energy storage technology. So there is an overview of the technologies. There is a chapter on the added value of technologies, where we kind of separate the different markets, and within the different markets, which services thermal energy storage can provide. Business cases that were provided by our members, and also, again, that is a non-exhaustive list. We are happy to expand it in the volume 2. We are happy to learn more, but this is just something that was contained within our membership. Policy recommendations on how thermal energy storage can be deployed better, how it can be implemented better, and of course the conclusion. It serves as a general overview. This paper, again, it can be, and we are happy to see it updated, happy to see a volume 2 in the coming months or years, but it is a starting point, and it is one of the, let's say, first policy papers of its kind that does provide such a summarized and general overview of thermal energy storage that we didn't really see from other organizations. I think for now that's it from me. I think for the questions we're going to have it later, if I'm correct. You're muted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Exactly. Thank you, Margareta, for your presentation. It's indeed very useful to start our webinar with a so comprehensive overview on thermal energy storage, application technologies, and the challenges that are still to address. Indeed, I want to encourage our participants, if there are already some questions for Margareta, you can start writing them on the chat so that she can start to reply to you directly in the chat. Otherwise, we will keep them for the Q&A section. But let's go now a little bit more into the specific of the legislative aspect of connected with the TESS solution through the intervention of Carla Zambrano Gonzalez. Carla holds a PhD in law and a laurea magistrale in advocacy from the University of Valencia, Spain, and she held a predoctoral and postdoctoral scholarship from the Ministry of Science and University of Spain, and is currently carrying out legal research as external expert in the Institute of Information and Communication Technologies at the University of Politécnica de Valencia. And she is also professor of law in the Universidad Internacional de La Rioja, where she's teaching subjects linked to human rights and international environmental law. Carla has also been appointed as EU Climate Pact Ambassador by the European Commission, and as part of her professional career, she was a practicing lawyer at the Valencia Bar Association. So it's a great pleasure that I give you the floor. So please, Carla, feel free to take control of the presentation and start your...
Perfect, Julia. Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you, Francesca, for all the support, because these weeks have been very stressful for me, and really thank you, because I'm very honored to participate in this event. Yes, so thank you for the introduction as well. So I'm gonna, the presentation that I'm gonna give you is entitled Legal Pathways to Deep Decarbonization in the EU, and specifically the energy sector. So yeah, the main context of my presentation, in order to be very brief, is to design to a point that the context that we are living right now. Then we are going to pass to the legislation under consideration in the concretely about the ECO project, and in the third position, we are going to make a quick analysis of the legal feasibility of ECO project. Okay, so let's go. What's the context that we are living right now? The context is an imbalance of the greenhouse gases, as you know, and we are living right now several crises in the world. Crisis attached to the climate emergency, crisis attached to human conflicts as the war, and the dependence and independence of fossil fuels. And obviously it creates a very difficult times for the international community. So what do we have to consider, and what is this energy transition moving so fast? Well, firstly, because we are depending on fossil fuels right now, and we have to move into another type of energies as the renewable energies, and as you know. But these kind of energies need, as you know as well, need the development of certain storage. So as we are living in a climate emergency, and we are living in the middle of this human crisis, we have to take into account this pyramid. Firstly, because this pyramid is gonna decide which is the legal pathway in order to achieve climate neutrality, which is the last objective, the final objective of the European Union. So as you know, we can see that we are living this climate emergency, but we have to provide some solutions, and some solutions attached to this legislation. So we have to consider, firstly, international law, international legal framework, then the European law, and then finally our national and domestic legislation in this case. Because the European Union has ratified the United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change. So it means that it's a part of this climate policy in the international legal framework. So in this case, as we are developing tests in the framework of the European Union, and there are certain third states that are a part of the consortium, we have to consider primarily legislation in international law. So we have very quickly, we have the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is an effective framework that deals with climate change, but the objective is to achieve a stabilization of greenhouse gas concentrations. Take into account that this convention was entered into force in 1994, and it was aimed at dealing with the scientific uncertainty in the material, in the issue concretely, and it has to deal with a lot of problems attached to the consideration of human activities as the exacerbation of certain imbalance in the climate consequences. So it is a convention that has a lack of specific obligations, that has a minimal content, very broad and generic provisions. There are not certain principles, but we have to consider it because it's the framework that decides, that constitutes the basis for the institutional framework, and it constitutes as well it decides, it has created the organisms attached to the institutional framework that we are experiencing in climate change policy at the international level. So we have to consider that this convention is the basis for the COPs and the secretariat that we are living annually, year per year. Then continuing with this chronology, with this chronology, we have to take into account that it appears in the second scenario, the Kyoto Protocol. The Kyoto Protocol was so hard, and it established certain commitments on reduction of greenhouse gases emissions. So what happens in this case, that it established 2 periods, and the European Union stayed alone in this case, in these 2 periods, because the United States, the US, does not ratify the Kyoto Protocol. Canada withdraws the Kyoto Protocol in the second commitment, and the European Union continued till the end of the second period. And it was like the new becoming of this kind of model of reference in climate policy in the international legal sector. So what is so attached this climate and energy sector? Because they are very interrelated, as we can see in the third instrument, in the third legal instrument, which is the Paris Agreement. It entered into force in the COP21 in 2016, and it established another kind of approach, of legal approach. It was not so hard as the Kyoto Protocol, but not so flexible as the convention, because we have a lot of certainty about the human activities, and obviously it could help a lot to establish certain common issues in the international community. So with the characteristics of the Paris Agreement is based by the globality, the progressive development of the NDCs, the national determined contributions, which is the plan of each member state party of this Paris Agreement, the transparency, because we have the opportunity to seek in the Secretariat website which are the NDCs that are being developed right now by maybe the US, by South Africa, by all over the world. And it established another point, the mechanism to facilitate the implementation. That means that the Paris Agreement built an institution, an institutional framework, and a committee in order to elaborate certain recommendations for those states who cannot develop the technologies and the policies as fast as the northern of Europe and the US and all the developed countries. So finally, we have to see that this Paris Agreement has another relevance, which is for human rights law. And it established certain elements, as it says, it mentions and makes some references specifically under energy poverty, which is very useful for us in human rights law. So establishing these connections, the European Union in the European regulation has determined in the seventh environmental European program the adoption of the European Green Deal, which is the main strategy that has the European Union in order to achieve climate neutrality. And this context is necessary because our project is involved in this sector, in this interrelation of sectors, concretely in two, an energy sector and industrial sector. Energy sector because it tries to seek energy, it tries to obtain energies from renewable sources, and secondly, it tries to storage this kind of energy in a device, in a storage device. And as the previous the previous conference, the previous speaker said, obviously it doesn't matter right now if it's test or not, if we are talking about electricity in or not, because we have to deal with the regulation, with the last regulation adopted in last July of this year, which is the regulation of the storage devices. So taking into account this great context, we have another package, which is the Fit for 55, that refers to the emission reduction target at the EU. And it says that the mitigation of greenhouse gases has to be at least 50% till 55% in the European Union. But what happens, and what is important in this case, the COP27, because Vice President Timmermans said in the COP27 that the European Union has to change this target in order to be more ambitious. And it established another target till 57% of greenhouse gases reduction. So that means that we have to move very quickly and develop each project, our project in this case, in order to achieve with the targets appointed by the European Commission, and that has been under legislation right now, because we have a regulation which is applicable to all the European Union member states, which is the regulation that established the framework for achieving climate neutrality and amend other regulations. That means this is the key, because that means that this regulation is not going to be transposed to each member state. That means that it is directly applicable and it's in force right now. So we have to move very quickly, because this regulation establishes three main goals, three main targets. Firstly, one established in 2030, which is the Fit for 55 package. The second one, the next decade, and 20 and 40, and then finally 2050 to achieve climate neutrality. The second decade target is not yet defined, because the European Commission wants to validate which are the results of this investment and this development till 2030. So we have to move very quickly in this sense, and we have to program each project attached to the European Green Deal, which is the basis and which establishes the interrelation that is very important in order to develop next our memories and obviously the economical and financial justification of our projects. And this is the basis, the European Green Deal. And then taking into account that we are promoting and we are contributing to the fulfillment of these regulations concretely in the first part of the target. Then, as I have mentioned, the European Green Deal has promoted the package of energy. And it says that this kind of energy has to be clean, affordable, and secure in order to prevent energy poverty. Because as we have lived, as we have experienced as a consequence of the war of Russia and Ukraine, and now the devastation of Israel and Palestine, it's gonna be we are gonna experience some difficult times attached to fossil fuels and the exploitation of resources. So that means that the access of energy could be in less conditions to all the citizens, to all the European citizens. So the European Commission wants to produce and produce more energy into our renewable sources. And obviously, it says that this energy production and its use in all economic sectors has to be in this way, has to be on renewable sources, wind, ocean, photovoltaic, and must be developed. But if we produce this kind of energy, we need to store it in several devices, and that's the reason why it's attached to the industrial energy of the European Green Deal plan, the industrial plan adopted in February of this year. So as we can see, the European Commission is moving very, very fast in this sense. It has taken the commitments of the international treaties of the Paris Agreement and the UNFCCC very, very hard. So it's going to establish several guidance in order to fulfill these commitments. Needs and development of energy storage was one of the goals of the European Commission, and obviously to be considered specifically these last regulations concerning batteries and waste batteries. So that we have to consider as well is which are the requirements that these batteries or these devices, storage devices, has to be has to take in order to create this device, because there are certain resources attached to carbon tax that we have to seek in order to prepare to better prepare and better understand the fulfillment of the commitments. Yeah, and finally, I'm gonna finish with a quick analysis of the legal feasibility of a project, and I could say that this project is legally viable according to the analysis of the international, European, and obviously mine regulation, which is a Spanish regulation. It enjoys a factual justification as a consequence of the previous quick background and general overview, and above all, it's favorable because the European regulatory scenario is going in this line of action. Then this project may be affected by the emergence of certain legislative pressure measures, as for example the market or the stakeholders in the energy sector, or maybe the taxation, the double taxation that as well has previously mentioned the other speaker. And obviously this project has to be progressive and has to seek progressive evaluations in order to seek if we are fulfilling with the evolution of standards that underpin and support the implementation of the legislation under consideration previously. And with this, I'm think that I'm on time. So thank you, really thank you for attending. I know there is a lot of information, and it's like, okay, you are talking about the legal standards in the international scenario, and then you have to apply. But that's the reason, because the European Union is a part of the international framework. So we have to decide, we have to consider the international legal framework as well. And obviously, when we are introducing this treaties, these international conventions, and we have to seek if these documents have a specific obligations, because obviously there's no state that wants to be obliged by certain other commitments that could affect to its sovereignty. So that's the reason why it's necessary to seek, like it was like a radiography. You have to seek what is happening and why we are moving so fast in this energy transition, and which are the main elements that we have to take into account in order to develop our project, and obviously typing it in the justification memories.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Carla, to bring us with you in this path through the legislative milestone of environmental law. And I'm pretty sure that your presentation will make rise several questions too. So again, please write on the chat, and Carla will be could we answer them also later at the end of our webinar. Because now it's time to let's go on with our third speaker, Felix Kredman, and Felix works as project manager at the RESCOPU, the European Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives, and his background is in EU public affairs, and he has worked in trade association as well as the European Parliament. He currently works on citizen-led renovation and community heating and cooling to democratize the EU energy system. And with his presentation today, Felix is going to let us know more about the heating and cooling community. So please, Felix, is your time. If you can take control of the presentation.
Absolutely. Let me just do a quick test. Did that work?
Otherwise, we can change the slide for you, no problem.
Did it change?
No, but okay, no problem. We can change the slide if you want. Just tell me when I have to go to the next one.
No worries, no worries. Well, first of all, thank you so much to you, Julia, of course, to Francesca, and to the Heat Pump Association in general for having us, and to everybody for listening here. The idea, essentially, much like Julia was saying, is that I present the case of community heating and cooling, right? So this is citizens essentially participating in the thermal energy. So here we are, that's me. So what we will start with is a little bit about RESCOOP, EU, and what we do, and then we'll go into the topic, right? So we'll talk about community. Oh, not quite. Thanks. We'll talk about community heating and cooling. Then we'll go into TASE and TESS, into thermal energy installations and storage examples, where I'll mention two that are interesting for different reasons. And then we can move on to some policy recommendations. Right. So without further ado, from RESCOOP side, so we turned 10 this year, actually. So big milestone. So we're created in 2013 as a nonprofit, and essentially we represent, much like the name says, right? We represent citizen energy cooperatives and energy communities all over the EU. So this means that we have a bit more than 2,200 members, and we represent around 1.5 million Europeans that want to democratize their energy. On the next slide, we'll be able to see that. I mean, of course, at the end of the day, you can imagine that all of these members are quite different, since we're talking about energy communities and therefore citizens, right? So as you can imagine, they are quite different, but we need to have some things in common, right? So that we can all be part of the same association. In this case, is not only the charter that we have at Risk Co-op, which defends the donut economy, right? Is the way that we see that the future needs to look, in our opinion, right, in order to stay within not only within the international commitments that we made, as Carla was mentioning it before, but beyond that, to live within the possibilities that we have within our planet, right? So what are these principles, these international principles for cooperatives? Well, these are the rules essentially that have us all together, right? So it needs to be voluntary and open membership. So that means that you can enter and leave the energy cooperative when you please. It needs to be democratically controlled by the members, of course. So this means that no one member can have more influence than the others over the decision making. And this goes as well into the autonomy and independence principles, right? So this means essentially the same. And the most important part as well is that there needs to be a concern for the community, so it cannot be for profit. And we cooperate with each other, as the name would suggest, right? So whenever we have a problem, then we share it with the others and we help each other out that way. But let's go into the topic at hand. So if you have more questions about this, we can see it later. But let's go straight into the legislation on energy communities. This actually started in 2019, and I'll be very quick because Carla already gave a good introduction into the legislation. But this started in 2019 with a Clean Energy for All package of the EU. And within this, there are multiple Fit for 55 files, of course. But to those of you who may not be familiar with EU legislation, what this did is to change the way that consumers interact with energy, essentially. So much like it's written here, right? It empowered consumers, this package of legislation, to be an active part of the energy transition. So this means to participate in distribution, in production, in storage of energy, in electric mobility, anything that has to do with renewable energy, essentially, and with the transition. This package is what allowed citizens to start doing this at an EU level, right? So this is a big change in the way that we used to operate in the EU, right? This introduces a more bottom-up approach to the transition, which is important to have a just transition, right? Much like the now ex-Vice President of the Commission, Timmermans, said many times, either we will have a just transition or there just won't be a transition. And this is very true. So we need to make sure that citizens are included in the process, essentially. And this is what the Clean Energy started in 2019. So how are we doing on this, right? From a legal point of view, in the next slide, we will be able to see the transposition tracker that we worked on in at Risk Co-op. And here, essentially, we are looking at how well member states are transposing this legislation on energy communities. So we invite you to, of course, go on the website, and then you can go country by country if you're curious about your own member state. Then yeah, we invite you to look at this because it is interesting. But straight into heating and cooling, because I see that time is running away from me. Right. So what is community heating and cooling? Right. I mean, it's essentially one of the activities done by energy communities. So this means that it's renewable, very important, renewable thermal energy systems that are owned by the participating citizens, as well as any other members such as municipalities or SMEs. So what does this mean in practice? What are the barriers and what are the drivers that we see from this? Well, there's multiple ones, as you can imagine. And I don't know how familiar you are with energy communities, so I apologize if I say something that you already know. But I think it's worth mentioning it again. So let's go first into the drivers, right? Into the good things that come out of this community heating. Well, like I mentioned before, this is democratically owned thermal energy systems, thermal energy installations. So these TAs follow one person, one vote principle, right? This means that if the municipality, the SME, or the citizen are a member, each one of them has one vote, right? So it does not, this ensures also the principle of autonomy that I was mentioning before, to make sure that there's not one part that has too much power over the other stakeholders in the energy community. So again, democratically decided how the thermal energy system is operated, right? Also very important, the not-for-profit principle, right? Energy communities cannot exist in order to make its members rich. They need to exist for a social and social or an environmental reason, right? So uh, this as well is a big change with traditional market actors, right? So therefore, most of them they actually focus on social benefits, right, in the community, as we will see later. And the way that this was accomplished in Denmark, for instance, that has a lot of citizen-owned heating systems. Actually, out of their 380 district heating systems, 320 are community-owned. So, and then there's 10 or 50, I believe, 50 that are owned by municipalities. But anyway, another good thing is the transparency that comes with all of this, and the fact that there is creation of local value, right? The money that the citizens are bringing in through their thermal activities is staying within the community. It's not going to some shareholders somewhere in another across the Atlantic. Right, but of course they face issues, as you can imagine, right? So what issues do they face? They don't have a lot of support at the beginning, right? So as you can imagine, citizens coming together, often they lack administrative support, they lack capacity, they lack knowledge about a certain topic. So this is when it comes in handy to have the municipality as well as a member of this energy community, because they can help with all of this. There's also the lack of imagination, as we call it, right? Which is that, of course, municipalities want oftentimes quick solutions to their to the thermal energy needs, right, and to the transition. So they often just think about giving the monopoly of heat to traditional market players instead of thinking of alternatives, right? Like, for instance, community energy, right? So let's see what citizens can do with this. So again, there's the lack of imagination. Building, of course, a district heating system, for instance, is complex, more complex than photovoltaics, right? So this is an added barrier as well that needs to be taken into account. And the access to capital, which is extremely important, especially at the beginning of the project when you need to do the feasibility studies and you essentially need to look at how much sense does it make to put renewable thermal energy in this municipality. So that's essentially the drivers and barriers. But what does this mean in practice, right? So in the real world, well, we have a couple of examples. The first one is from Bouvan, which I hope shows the professionalization of the service, even if it is done by citizens, right? Well done, even if it is governed essentially by citizens in the municipality. Then I'd like to present the case of Essek in Greece, which is, I think, is one of my favorite examples because it's very cute, it's very sweet in the way that they built the community. And then I'll talk a bit about Energie Samen, probably butchering that, which is the Dutch Federation and how they approached it in a cooperative sense. So Bouvan, as you can see here, they created a district heating system in Ostend in Belgium. So this took them around 7 years to build, but because it was stuck in administrative procedures for most of the time. So the construction in itself and the admin was only 3 years. So as you can see here, we can see one of the first bottlenecks that we already see for citizen projects, right? That oftentimes it gets stuck in the ether of paperwork. But this citizen-owned district heating system, right, is 9 kilometers long nowadays. It produces, as you can see, 17 gigawatts of heat between 90 and 60 degrees. And it gives heat to a lot of things, as you can see, right, to 500 citizens, 25 companies, a couple hospitals, also to the municipal building itself, right? And the way they did this essentially is simply so they flipped it around, right? The way that they decided to do it is to first collaborate with the municipality and with the SMEs in order to find a source of heat, which in this case was waste heat. They connected to the source, and then they looked for big consumers of heat first. So they did this. They provided the heat to these big consumers, which were the SMEs and some industry, in order to professionalize the service. And once they were comfortable enough with knowing how to operate the district heating system, then they decided to open it to citizens, because you need to make sure that, of course, you do it well, right? Because you don't want people to be disappointed at the project, because that means that they will be disappointed at the transition itself, right? So this is an interesting case, because first they focus on the consumers of heat rather than in getting membership. The case of ESSEC, which is the next one in Greece, they decided to do that differently. So they decided to first build a community, right? So to get the citizens together and then to decide what they do, right? So in this case, what they did is that they did a collaboration. I mean, they do many things, right? They do, for instance, a renewable energy festival in summer. And in this energy community is citizen-led, but it also has municipalities and SMEs in it. So in this case, what they decided to do, they do festivals in summer, like I said, right? But here they decided to work together with a kindergarten, because the children were very curious about the renewable energy, right? So they decided to, the kids decided to then go to coffee houses and take their waste coffee, right? And from this waste coffee, they gave this to the energy community, right? And the energy community made coffee pellets with this. So between the waste coffee that they got, that the children were gathering, right? So between that waste coffee and the municipal prunings from the forest, because it's in the mountains, they were able to do a new kind of energy, if you will, right? A new kind of pellet. And the children, they gathered around 1 ton, so enough coffee to make 1 ton of pellets, right? And they decided to, the energy community told them, all right, now you can do as you please with this energy. So of course, for the first time, they were able to reach thermal comfort, renewable thermal comfort, for a year in this kindergarten. But with the thing that they had left, they decided to give it to vulnerable households, right? So the energy community, together with the municipality, they gave, it's a very sweet story, honestly. So they gave this to vulnerable households so that everybody is able to heat their homes, right, with renewable energy. And this is a very sweet case. And the picture that you see on the right, that's a Christmas boiler that they decided to install so that the children could put the letters to Santa Claus at the same time as they learn about renewable energy, right? And what I want to say with this case is that it's important to convince people and to bring citizens on board in an energy community, because that leads to greater social acceptance of the transition. And that is one of the most important parts of an energy community. And then we go to Energy Samen, who they decided to do an academy. So essentially to exchange knowledge between the Dutch energy communities themselves in order to help each other out. So long story short, we also published some guidelines where all of this is explained in great length. So we would, of course, recommend that you look into that. You would be making me very happy if you look into this. We also added a how-to, so you can learn how to create your own energy community for heating and cooling. So your own community heating and cooling system. And finally, right, how do we make sure that this keeps growing in the EU? We have a couple of policy recommendations in the last one that, it's for policymakers mostly, but you're also welcome to looking at it. And essentially, and with this I finish because I see that I'm over my time, so I'm sorry. Essentially, we need to make sure that there's a level playing field between citizen projects and between traditional market actors, especially given the monopoly position that heating and cooling is in at the municipal level. We need to make sure that we help municipalities to have, so that they have enough resources to create these energy communities and to help citizens create them, right? So we need to help them financially, municipalities and citizens. We need to help them financially and with administrative and capacity support. And it wouldn't be bad to make sure that every renewable heating and cooling projects, if we're going to wish for something, that they have a citizen dimension to it, right? So that to some extent or another, citizens have a say over what happens to their local renewable energy. And greater transparency, because that's of course what brings us all together, knowing what we do and doing it in a transparent way. And with that, I leave you with some resources that I hope you will find useful. And I thank everybody again for the event. Thank you for listening to this very long and I bet sometimes boring presentation of mine, but happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Felix, for your view on this renewable thermal energy system. But in particular, thank you for the presentation of the demo case, the case studies, because let me say they are always really inspiring and interesting to know about. Also heartwarming sometimes. And yeah, let's go. It's time now to. I want to remember to the participant that the slide are going to be made available in the next day for you. So don't worry about the link that are inserted. You will receive everything. It's time now to give the floor to our project partners, actually, starting with ECO, represented by Efren Guillot-Sansano. Efren is an innovation manager at Grupo Enercop. He holds a Master of Science and a PhD in electrical power engineering from the University of Strathclyde, Glasgow. And he has broad experience in electrical power system and renewable energy areas. In his current position at Enercop, he develops and manages the presentation. He develops and manages innovation project aimed at the integration of renewable energy storage system, and the development of smart electrical distribution network. And he has participated in the planning, development, and operation of local renewable energy community over the last year. So yeah, please, Efren, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you for your introduction. So I'll try to present the role of energy storage and the ECO TES and the ECO project in our local energy community, which is called COMTEM, and it's in Crevillent. So first, I'll go quickly through who do we are. We are Grupo Enercop, so our main company is the Electric Cooperative of Crevillent, which was founded in 1925. So that's almost 100 years ago. So we were built, as Felix was mentioning, from the collective and cooperative principles, and with an objective to provide electric supply to the municipality. So in 100 years ago, access to electricity for industries at the time was very difficult. So a number of industrial organizations joined efforts in order to develop the electric network of the municipality to have electrical supply for the industry. So that is how it was founded. So the ethical principles of excellence, transparency, and service for the cooperative members are the main principles for Grupo Enercop. We have about 11,000 members and also approximately 14,000 consumers, and also 5,000 clients which are outside of the municipality. So we have the main governing principle of cooperatives, but also energy communities, which is one member, one vote. So everyone has the same possibility to make decisions in the cooperative. And our formula is no distribution of benefits. So we are a non-for-profit entity, and we reinvest 100% of the benefits in social corporate responsibility, mainly within the municipality of Crevillent. So we are a very local entity. So our group has a main holding company, which is the cooperative company, and but we are now involved in all the value chain of electricity. So we are involved in innovation projects such as the ECO project. We have also production installations, renewable energy production, mainly PV installations and also some mini hydro power plants. We are the DSO for the municipality, so we own the distribution network here in the municipality of Crevillent. We are also an energy supplier, so we are an energy supplier on national level, so not just at the municipal level. And we also have a part of the business, which is the energy service provision, so all oriented into the energy transition, so installation of renewable energy, installation of storage, consultancy services for energy transition projects, and so on. And also we have an electric mobility charging network in the municipality, so to provide also an extra service to our members. So as I said before, so we were founded 100 years ago, but as also Felix has mentioned, let's say the regulation on energy communities started in 2019 or so, and it's where we started our transition from a historical energy cooperative to an energy community, because the values and the principles are mainly the same. And it's when we started our most iconic project, which is this energy community for municipal energy transition in Crevillent. You can see here a picture of one of our PV installations, which was not only let's say a PV production installation, but we did the whole project of the park and the space below the installation that you can see there. It was a project beyond a PV production installation, but more a space for the community members to participate and to be part of. And also in these installations, we currently have an energy storage system that we use for this collective self-consumption installation. So what's the model of our energy community? So basically, our energy community is formed by most of the municipality of Crevillent, and we have some collective self-consumption installation, mainly of PV energy, just due to the location of our energy community. In here, it just rains sand rather than water, so that's what we have, and that's what we take profit of. So we have currently 7 collective PV installations. These are built mainly in municipal buildings that was possible through a public tender that we obtained the use of the municipal roofs of some of their buildings. So we have approximately 700 kilowatts installed just now in these 7 installations. And we are also about to start operation of a small PV plant, which is a 3 megawatt PV plant at the outskirts of Crevillent. And the idea is to try to provide this renewable energy to the community with different objectives, but mainly to reduce their cost of electricity and also to be more participative in this energy community. So in our community, we have different types of members, from SME, residential consumers, industrial consumers, but also vulnerable consumers. So I think energy poverty is also a hot topic nowadays. So we are including these vulnerable consumers in our community through different strategies like a social bonus, in which we offer a discount in their electricity bill. But obviously, so we have an issue, and I think is how I would start, how I would introduce the role of energy storage in energy communities is that, I mean, production and consumption of energy is not done synchronously, but for the energy network, you require that the electricity or energy that you are producing needs to be consumed at the same time. So it needs to be a balance, and that is where energy storage comes. As I said, we have one of the installations of the self-consumption installations, which has already an energy storage system. In this case, it's not thermal, it's an electrochemical lithium-ion energy storage system. That was part of a previous innovation project that is now completed. That was the Merlon project, in which we install this energy storage system for different reasons. One, as I said, is the optimization of cost. So obviously with the energy storage, we can store energy and consume that energy store at the times which prices are higher, but also as a security of supply. So we could work with this energy storage system disconnected from the network. So in the case there's an event in the network, so we have security of supply for the members of the community. And yeah. So, but we believe this is just the beginning, and then there's more to go. So we are involved in different innovation projects in which ECO is one of them, in which we are participating towards identifying the potential of thermal energy storage in our energy community, but also in order to provide services to the system and to optimize the use of energy storage, thermal and electrical energy storage. We are involved also in other projects such as STREAM that looks at flexibility in local energy markets that will be required in order to participate in the energy system. So being able to sell services from these energy storage systems. And we also participate in other projects related to data. Data is also key in order to optimize the use of these energy storage systems, and mainly also energy community, where private data sometimes is required in order to optimize this system with the demand of the members. So I'll just introduce ECO, the ECO project. So with a very nice video that I will introduce better than I will introduce it, and I will talk about it after that. Oh, sorry. Okay, So that's the introduction to ECO. So I won't go into the details of the technologies of the materials because I'm not a material expert. So I'll leave that if you want to find more information, or just send me an email and I can direct you to the people that have that expertise. But my expertise is a bit more on the integration of renewable and energy storage into the grid. So I can touch a bit more on that front. So, and why do we need this energy storage? Is because we are moving to this future electrical energy system, which has non-dispatchable renewable generation instead of the dispatchable nuclear or coal or gas generation that we were using until now. But we also have some production from our side, not just the electrical side, and we are also increasing electrification quite a lot, and mainly due to transport and heating and cooling. So that's the main loads that are being electrified, and we need to understand all these dynamics, and in order for the system to work as it has been working so far, we need this energy storage in order to balance everything. So the ECO TES, specifically this thermal energy storage, will be adaptable, modular, and flexible, so you can charge directly by an internal heat pump, or also exploiting the grid overproduction when it's cheap, or even their own renewable energy sources in each household. But it can also provide system services. So one of the main advantages of energy storage is the load shifting or peak shaving of the energy load profiles, and this will bring some cost and energy savings to the community, and also the potential to participate in flexibility energy services to the grid. However, regulation still, so as Carla said. So there's a ground and there's a clear objective to work towards that, but still regulation is not there in order to provide these flexibility services to the grid, at least in Spain, for example. So there's some work on demand response, network codes, and so on, but still nothing final, and there's no possibility. So just to finish, so how do we see the whole picture? So we will have a smart building where heating or thermal loads and electrical loads will be not just loads, but also flexibility from energy storage and renewable generation will be interconnected. So, for example, in this case, through an ECO TES system, and but we go further in the ECO project, and we will try to assess the impact that in an energy community such as ours, what would be the effect if each house in our community, the 11,000 members, they have one ECO TES in their house, what type of services could they provide in an aggregated manner through an energy community manager? So what impact can that have either in the community electricity prices of the members, in the grid of the community? So what impact, or how could we support the grid, with these energy storage systems, and basically that's the key impacts that us as Enercop will be assessing within the ECO project. And I think that's me. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any doubt, I'll answer now in the questions and answer.
Thank you very much, Efren, for this focus on ECO approach and for presenting the case of relevant. It was a really useful example of an energy community, and I think you have already some question on the chat, so I'll leave you to them, because now it's time to introduce our last presentation of the day, last but not least. From Pavel Bodis, Best Storage Project Partners. And Pavel has a PhD at Vom Hamolf Institute in Amsterdam. Sorry for the bad pronunciation of it. He worked 13 years at TNO as a senior system integrator, responsible for demonstration of project of various thermal storage and conversion technologies. Moreover, Pavel has been technical coordinator of 3 EU projects, Merits, Create, and Scores, as is the co-founder of Newton Energy Solution since 2022, bringing affordable thermal energy storage solution for built environment, and is currently the CEO of Newton Energy Solution. And so, Pavel, feel free to take control of the presentation. Okay, you already do, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Julia, for a very warm introduction. I hope everybody can hear me. And I want to obviously thank you for being able to tell you a little bit about what we do in our BESS storage project and also about our company, Newton Energy Solutions. Let me make a step directly to the first slide, where I will tell you a little bit about who we are. I'm a little bit embarrassed to follow up after the speakers before me who have shown such amazing cases of societal driven transition towards sustainable energy and energy storage use as such. We are a commercial company. We are driven by profit, and as such, we try to bring products to the market that add value, but also add economic value. I have been asked to present today what we do, but also what we do in our project itself, but mostly focus on the business cases and the way energy storage can actually make money and create economic value. So it's a very different perspective on the challenge that we face and looking at the economic aspect of that. I will not tell too much about our BESS storage project. You can read about it on the website. My presentations will mainly be consisting of 2 parts, in short introduction to our company, and then focus on the economic value and the business cases that energy storage can bring in society today and in the future. So a little bit about our company. So now this starts the commercial break, where we tell a little bit about our company and our product. What we do thermal energy storage in vacuum insulated systems in order to make sure that the societal aspects of the energy transition as energy poverty and accessibility of green energy are addressed in a proper way. Which means that we try to bring products on the market that are ecologically sound, very low CO2 footprint, which also provide very good business case for the end client and bring as much green energy into its use as possible, maximizing the self-produced energy and also the self-consumed energy. Now, my previous speakers already explained in detail what energy storage is and how it can be used. So I can only say thank you and move to the next slide, where I show examples of energy storage systems that are there. And this is a very, very small part of the existing systems that are out there, where you see on one side typical boiler systems, which are widely applied in built environment, utility buildings, etc., etc. You see their electrical storage systems, you see their storage system based on hydrogen or based on phase change materials, or even some prototypes of systems on the market which are driven by thermochemical materials. So why do we need more options? What else is out there? What are the things that we need to address and how to address those issues? Effectively, what we need to make sure is that we address the following. I go to the next slide. The following aspects. We need to create energy systems that are cost efficient, which means we have to drive the cost down of the products and drive also the cost of the use of the products, which has to do with obviously using maximizing the use of green and cheap electricity or energy as such, and also minimizing the amount of maintenance and increasing the lifetime of the product, which adds not only economic but also, of course, environmental value. Next step, which is important for built environment, is compactness. We can build systems that are cheap, but if they are too big, they will never be applied into buildings. So the compactness is very, very important factor. And it's not only compactness of the energy, amount of capacity that you can store, but most importantly, amount of energy that can be released after the amount of time the energy was saved. So if I aim to store energy for a few weeks, I need to make sure that I have as much of it as possible still available. So my energy losses, my energy performance has to be of most importance. The last but not least is obviously the cycling efficiency, which of course has to do a lot with the amount of green energy is being used and amount of energy losses that are within the system. Least, but of course, what's important is also that are societal aspects or aspects that have to do with acceptance of the technology by the client. This is something that we have in our research originally when we worked within TNO, found out that you can build a cheap system, you can build an efficient system, but as long as a client will not accept it in their building, it is not going to be sold, it is not going to be implemented. And it has to do with simply sometimes emotion, sometimes fear, and sometimes just legislation that does not allow specific technologies to be placed within the built environment. These restrictions are really critical to be that we are aware of them so that we can choose the right technologies for the right type of application. Now, what do we do exactly? We effectively, in our company, we have a product called Nestor, which stores hot water at very high temperatures, up to 110 degrees, with virtually non-existent energy losses. Just imagine you put a cup of tea on your desk, you come 1 month later back, and your cup of tea is still hot. This is something that we don't normally experience in our lives because we know that hot water tends to get cold. However, if you remove all heat bridges, all means for the heat to leave the system, the hot water will remain hot for a very, very long time. And that enables you to store far larger amount of energy in a relatively compact space because, well, your delta T can go up, and this means your energy capacity can go up. This is what we do in our system. We push the boundaries of traditional boiler systems and to make them as good or even better performance than electrical batteries on top of the bill. And as such, we can actually create extremely compact systems with capacities of up to 30 kilowatt hours that fit into a size of a system that's not larger than a regular fridge. But what does that actually mean? 1% of energy lost per day. What it means is something like this. Imagine the orange line is basically a temperature, average temperature inside our system, and let's say the gray line is a typical e-boiler performance. And what you see on the x-axis is a number of days, so a month, and what you see on y-axis is temperature. So simply put, you could see this as your state of charge. And if you look in our product, that you see that the energy within the system after being connected to the building itself remains there for a very, very long time. As such, our product provides a crazy amount of flexibility and thus reduces not only the costs of the energy used, but also significantly increases the percentage of the green energy used by the building itself. And this is the step that we've taken within one of the previous EU projects, and we translated it to a company and to a business case and business model for our clients. Now, let me move to the part about the typical business cases for the end users. Obviously, in many countries, you're looking at these three typical business cases of how energy storage can provide economic value. You either increasing the self-consumption of your own PV or other types of energy source that you have on in or within the building to make sure that you use the energy that you produce yourself, as such that energy typically doesn't have taxes associated with it and typically is the cheapest one to be used because it was effectively pre-financed. That's one way to do that. Second additional value could be a reduction of your grid costs. This is something that was addressed a little bit in the previous presentation, where if I have a lot of solar panels, for example, installed on my roof, I tend to, during summer days, for example, send a lot of energy to the grid, and I'm making the grid basically filled with green energy and creating balance issues in the grid itself. This means that in many situations already in Europe, as an owner of such building, you have to pay additional costs to the grid operators who has to then strengthen the grid. If you apply storage, however, you can defer those costs, those investments, and your grid connections can remain lower. The third typical example that we've observed as a way to typically earn money with energy storage system are dynamic tariffs. What I mean by that is hourly changed electricity tariffs. See a picture on the right side as an example of that, a day where you see that energy price per hour or even per 15 minutes is changing, and you as a user or the systems you have at home or in your building can be charged at a moment when the prices are low and can be used the energy that was saved, that was stored in the moments that the price is high. In this way, you can effectively reduce your operational costs of the energy itself. Now let's zoom in a little bit about the increased self-consumption. What you see here are very important aspects that play a role in the way of how much money or how quickly can you earn the cost of your energy storage back. And that has to do with type of contract you have. Do you have a fixed electricity cost? Do you have feed-in tariffs? And how is your net metering behaving? Also, what is the time frame of your net metering? So the example I gave before, on the hourly basis, then effectively the net metering is behaving on a level that every 1 hour, in that case, your cumulative amount of electricity produced is subtracted from the electricity that was consumed from the grid, and the balance is either paid to you based on the tariff, or you pay to the grid operators for that 1 hour of use. However, there are also cases in some countries, for example, in Netherlands, where the time frame of the net metering is 1 year, which basically means that I accumulate all my energy produced with my solar system per year, and I subtract that amount of produced energy from the amount of energy I consumed per year. In this way, the energy grid serves as a huge battery. And in those situations, I have absolutely no need to have energy storage in an economic way. As you can see, per country, even per region, there could be major differences in about the way the government or regional government applies policy and can make energy storage very cost effective, or can make it absolutely economically uninteresting. If you look at it from the perspective of reduced grid costs, for example, again, in the Netherlands, where we come from, there's coming basically a rule that's going to say that you're not going to pay for your electricity grid on a basis of fixed fee per year, but you're going to prepay certain bandwidth, let's say 4 kilowatt in and 4 kilowatt out of my building. And this is what you will pay yearly for. However, if you're on hourly basis, go above or below that particular bandwidth, you're going to pay a fine. And as such, storage will provide significant economic incentives to avoid those peaks of either electricity being sent to the grid or electricity being consumed from the grid. And it's another way for storage to make money. Looking a little bit deeper into the dynamic tariffs, dynamic pricing, what you see, again, example from the Netherlands on the right side, you see the number of hours that in the Netherlands where the electricity price is negative within each year. So you see that with a larger penetration of green energy, the amount of days with a negative electricity prices has gone up significantly, and the expectations are that it will be reaching in the years to come in thousands of hours per year. This creates an opportunities for energy storage to effectively create economic value for the owners of operators of the system. On the 3 pictures that you see here, you see a typical demand-driven electricity profile, which is typically what you see in many research papers is shown as the average price profile per day. This is what you see in situations where there is not too much sun, when there is not too much wind, and the prices are effectively driven by the peaks in the morning and peaks in the afternoon or in the evening of the demand itself. However, this profile is becoming less and less apparent, and much more we see the ones on which is a solar-driven or a wind-driven price pattern. These patterns basically show the added value, economic added value of storage. You see that with those deltas shown there, you can actually get that electricity, buy the electricity for negative pricing or for zero costs, and not use it later at later stage when the prices are high. More and more these patterns will take place, more and more economic value of electricity or energy storage as such will be apparent. And this has to do with penetration of the green energy in our grid. So further we go, further we can make economic value of that. And based on these kinds of analyses and these economic aspects, we also can conclude that without electricity or without energy storage, whether it's thermal, electrical, or based on chemistry, based on molecules, energy transition cannot proceed further beyond specific percentage in the grid, because effectively the grid will become inaccessible to more and more users due to vast fluctuations of the accessibility and availability of the energy in the grid. Now, there are also atypical business cases that you don't hear too much about, and as, for example, is an increased value of the property. If I install in a building an energy storage system and my energy label is going to go up, then I effectively can say I have made my money back already on the value of the property. This is also something that plays a significant role, and it's also very much dependent on the legislation in specific country. At the moment, I think it was mentioned by the previous speakers, legislation about energy storage is very scarce to find, and EU in many cases doesn't even recognize energy storage as a beneficial technology for the buildings. This needs to change because obviously economic value can come also from the perspective of the value of the property. Another perspective on looking at energy storage is energy storage as an insurance. Insurance for the fluctuations of electricity or energy prices coming from the grid. If you are less dependent on the energies coming from the outside, you also are much less influenced by the price fluctuations coming from the grid. So you can protect yourself, insure yourself to make sure you're less dependent, and as such, your stability of the pricing of energy remain better. The last but not the least is also understanding the value of the energy storage as simply being part of your home, being part of the building. Just look back 200 years ago, none of us had usually in the buildings toilets. Why didn't we do it? Well, we cannot even imagine not having toilets in the buildings, but before we just didn't. It was not necessary. Nowadays, because of hygiene, because of healthcare, and because of simply comfort, we decide to do that. It consumes a lot of space inside a building, but we still do that. We also have fridges to provide us food. We don't need fridges for cooking, but all of us have it. Why? Is there an economic benefit behind it, or is it a societal transition towards accepting that certain costs are simply made and provide specific comfort, security, and a standard of living? And this is also something that energy storage, we believe, will become part of in the coming years. What's the future? The future has been already slightly touched upon by my previous speaker, has to do with not only storage providing value to the building owner, but also storage providing value to the grid. This is an example of the flexibility market system in the Netherlands, which already provides specific flexibilities today to make sure your local distributed energy storage system in a building can actually play a role on one of the markets, most specifically on the day-ahead market by the means of dynamic tariffs. One can already today in the Netherlands actually make money or not lose money on the energy itself. Further on, distributed energy storage systems will be deployed. Also, for example, AFRR markets and other types of markets, especially in the congestion market of the GoPax, can become accessible. Those secondary markets in the GoPax system are more related to the DSO markets, where the local congestion of the grid can be resolved by distributed energy storage system. As you can see, the business models at the moment for the storage at this level are not all ready, but some of them are already being applied, and there are tens of thousands of customers, also private customers, who already have such contracts and participate daily and hourly on these kinds of markets. So this is really coming to the whole Europe, and it's going to be one significant way how to create value coming out of energy storage in buildings. Just for the conclusion, in principle, the business case for energy storage is for the moment quite complex, as you can see, and difficult. However, the value stacking is going to provide significant boost in the economic benefits that energy storage can bring on the local level, on the grid level, as well as on the overall grid of the countries themselves. I believe, and we believe, that we're moving at the moment to the storage on a local level, and also on a national level, to become simply a national infrastructure that is simply changing the game of how the energy is being bought and sold. I think that's in conclusion from my part. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Pavel, for presenting us these interesting business cases in particular. And since you are already on the stage and it's time to start our Q&A section, I would like to start asking you my first question. And you may guess I am particularly interested in the topic. So I would like to ask you, how could thermal energy storage interact with the heat pump?
The thermal energy storage, it depends on the type, of course. So the energy storage, for example, our storage nestor can interact with the heat pump by being charged with a heat pump as well. and thus also utilize the larger COP. Other type of storage have specific interactions that can be provided that provide being a cold source or a hot source for the energy with which they're being charged. I think in this respect, from my perspective, if I would give an example of what's it's a metaphor of what's the difference for a building being a heat pump and being energy storage system, then I think I go back to my metaphor of cooking, where my electrical stove is my heat pump. I need to heat up my food with the cooking equipment, and the fridge is my storage system, which enables me to be able to cook my food in the most effective way, where my greens, my meat, etc., can be available for me when I need it, and I don't have to go for every little bit to the shop, and I can also get my food for a lower price. I think this is something that I would give an example of how heat pumps and storage can interact on both technological level as well as on a use case level.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your explanation. I think you already have some at least one question even in the chat. So if you can check on that. In the meanwhile, I will make a question to Margareta that I see here. Could you tell us more, Margareta, on the level of maturity of the technology at this stage? What is the technology readiness level now?
So specifically for when we're talking about thermal, it varies between the very early technology readiness levels, so between 1 and 3, but also commercially ready technologies between the technologies readiness level would be between 7 and 9. You have to also take into consideration that there is quite a big difference still between 7 and 9, but in general, it means that it is commercially ready that to be mass produced or to be used. Most of the thermal energy storage technologies that are commercially ready at the moment are falling between sensible heat and latent heat principles. But it does also need to be highlighted that the other principles, the specific technologies, even though maybe they're not commercially ready, they do have a high potential to be ready quite soon, and to be deployed quite soon. So even though maybe some of them are still in the early or middle stages, there is a big potential that in the next maybe months or years they will be commercially ready.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Margareta, for your explanation on this in this aspect. And again, I see raising the question on the chat, but I will let us before to ask Carla if she's still with us. I hope so. I don't know, Carla, if you can turn on your camera. No, I don't see you. Are you okay? Maybe we can start with go on with Efren in the meanwhile that Carla is able to connect again with us. And Efren, I would like to ask you about the main barriers toward a broader installation of energy storage system in your energy community.
So I think that the first of them is cost. So I think at least for electrochemical energy storage, and I think also for thermal, cost is quite high compared with the revenue streams that you can have from energy storage. So until this is a cost-effective solution, it is different to adopt widely. But also awareness from the community members. They don't know what's energy storage. They don't know what it can do. They don't know anything. So there's also a need for information, and that's where I think energy communities can play a good role in informing and educating members in energy terms. Let's say, what's renewable generation, what's energy storage, what do you need in the near future. I mean, we will need, all of us will need to participate of the energy system. So the system is not anymore unidirectional, it's bidirectional. So we need to provide support to the grid in order to have a system that works. So I think those, from my point of view, are the main limitations. There's also some challenges, administrative challenges, and also legal challenges that present also a big limitation. but that's I have the vision of those from country level, so I'm not sure if for the whole Europe is the same, but there's administrative regulation in terms of energy storage seen as a production facility, which needs to comply with all the renewable production, let's say, regulations, and for example, to go into the queue of projects, of renewable energy projects, being a much different project, because we are not, or energy storage is not let's say, it's not a production facility only, it's something different. So there needs to be some clarification also on that front.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Efren. And I will go a little bit fast now so we can answer all the questions that we have. And so Felix, I would like to, you present different demo case, different case studies, and in particular in the ESEC case, why did you decide to build an energy community there?
Right. So the ESEC case is the Greek one, right? The one with the kindergarten. It all started, I mean, first of all, because they are in Karditsa, which is in Greece, a mountainous area, right? Very, very rural. So first of all, they have the problem with accessing energy, so thermal energy sources, right? So there was that. But what made them mobilize is the potential installation of windmills. So there was a company that wanted to install windmills in the region, but the citizens were not too happy about it. So they decided to, a couple of them, which is usually the case, a couple of them got together essentially to create an energy cooperative that was based on heating, because they thought that the need that there was at the local level was rather heating, more so than power generation. And that's how it started, with a couple of citizens just coming together. And that is the interesting thing about this, is that that's how most of them start at the end of the day, right? It's just a couple of people like you or me getting together around the kitchen table and discussing about something where we want to see some change. And then eventually, more citizens come in, the municipality joins as well. So yeah, it's that's how it usually starts, right? With it's very bottom up, is my point.
Thank you. Yes, Felix. The best decisions are always made in that way, I think. Maybe someone has a microphone. Oh, maybe someone has a microphone on, because I can hear my voice again. Okay. Carla, I see you on the stage now, so I can do my question to you. I can ask my question, and I would like to, if you can tell us more about why is the concept of energy demand flexibility so important in the EU to achieve the climate neutrality?
Sorry, because I'm experiencing problems in the technical system, and then with the connection, I don't know what's happening today with the network. But yeah, the importance of the demand flexibility lies in its ability to bring the stability and efficiency to energy system. So it allows users to adapt their consumption to the market conditions and the grid requirements. That's the reason why it's so important, the development of this flexibility on demand in the European Union. And that's the reason why we need to be certain, determined in our regulations this concept, because it's the way to play with the stakeholders in the energy market. So that's the reason why it's so important for us. And obviously it minimizes the need for cost of energy storage and reduce the dependence on non-renewable energy sources during the periods of high demand, as for example in the case of the war in Ukraine, when we experience a high cost of the electricity as a consequence of this case of the high price prices and of energy, and obviously it impacted directly in the consumers, in all the consumers. So yeah, that's the reason why it's so important.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you.
I think there is.
I think there is.
I don't know if you do also my voice twice. Okay, no, it's fine now. Okay, I think there is still one question on the chat that has without answer. I think is more addressed to Efren, but I'm not sure about it. So because it's not specified, so if one other speaker want to answer to this, the question is there synergies between the expansion in wind energy supply and thermal storage with heat networks compared to the cost of low batteries? Connected to this, is cold storage likely to be a bigger global market in the future than heat storage? I don't know who wants to address this question. Someone volunteering?
I can,
Margareta or
Margareta, go ahead.
Just in general and briefly, but yes, there is a synergy between the wind energy supply and thermal energy storage, but it doesn't necessarily need to mean that it's a specific synergy between the renewable energy sources supply and thermal energy storage. But mostly, yes, in general, there is a synergy, obviously, with the more integration of renewable energy sources in the energy grid. With, for example, thermal, thermal can in district heating store much more energy, for example, than certain other energy technologies. So there could be we do see the potential, especially specifically in this sense for implementation and the deployment of thermal energy storage. For the other question is. I assume is cooling storage likely to be a bigger global market in the future than heat storage? That is a very difficult question at the moment to answer. In general, this is one of the challenges that we have mentioned is data accessibility. Usually, it's quite difficult to get or to obtain this type of data because obviously companies that provide these technologies and they can be quite protective. Which, in terms of policies and economy, you can imagine why they can be protective of this data. So this, for now, can only be a kind of a educated guess game. But really, the data on this is quite scarce, to be honest.
Thank you, Margarita, for your view on that. I don't know if Pavel wants you to add something. Because I see that
I agree with the let's say response. To add the cooling storage to the second question, the cooling storage is going to depend on the local market. So it's different to be in Norway and it's different in India. And I think for our conversation, it's most important to focus on European market, where the differences between the Northern Europe and the Southern Europe, for example, regarding climate will play a role. A significant role. So, for example, the analysis we see in Netherlands, the storage for cooling is not going to be a significant market because you have in the summer, basically, when it's hot, the sun is available. So you're using the air conditionings or let's say systems to cool down. And in the other periods, it cools down quite quickly. It's different in the regions like India, where you have constantly 35 or maybe 40 degrees, and then you really need to do something about storing the energy between and breaching the periods. For the synergy between the thermal storage and wind, and this is specifically with heat networks, I would keep it maybe more generic. Wind energy is again very dependent on the region. Netherlands, Norway, England, etc., have in the winter significant excess of wind production. And that can be turned into the heat needed for the heating of the buildings. If you make a right match between the production of the wind and the production of the sun in the right regions, you can actually balance the capacity quite nicely on a yearly basis, per day even. And that's really actually the interesting way to find the right match between the capacity of solar and wind to make sure that we have a stable as stable grid as possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pavel. I want to thank all the speakers actually, because we are running out of time. So it's time to close the webinar. I want to thank you all for participating and for your valuable time. I would also like to thank the participants who joined us in this webinar today. And I hope this webinar gave you the opportunity to learn more about the role of energy storage in energy community. I want to remember you to follow our project, Eco and Best Storage, on the website and again also in the social media account. And also follow EHPA to learn more about our next webinar and different activity. I remember you again that all the slide and presentation will make you available. We will send them by email in the next days. And thank you again. Thank you to the speakers, first of all, and thank you to the participants. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.